Good morning or good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Before we jump in, you will receive the presentation slides, and this webinar is being recorded and will be available on telemetry.com after today. Please note on your attendee panel, there is a box to ask any questions as they come to you, and we'll answer as many as we can at the end of the presentation. My name is Carrie Gillum, and I'm the Director of Marketing here at Telemetry. I'd like to take a moment to introduce our speakers today, Madeline Lorano and Stephen Schwander. Madeline's primary focus over the last 12 years has been on the talent management market, specializing in talent acquisition. Her work helps companies both validate and reevaluate their strategies and understand the role that technology can play in driving business outcomes. She has watched HCM transform from a back office function to a strategic company initiative with a focus on partnerships, experience, and efficiency. Before Aptitude Research Partners, Madeline held research roles at Aberdeen, Burson by Deloitte, ERE Media, and the Brandon Hall Group. She is co-author of Best Practices in Leading a Global Workforce and has been quoted in the Wall Street Journal, Boston Globe, Yahoo News, and the Financial Times. She is a frequent presenter at industry conferences, including HR Tech. Stephen Schwander leads Telemetry's Customer Solutions team. Stephen started his recruitment career in 1997 as a contingency technical recruiter for Wall Street Talent. He has 18 years of progressive experience in talent acquisition, including serving as the Director of Global Operations for Reuters. He has significant talent acquisition operations and enterprise implementation experience with several global clients across finance, manufacturing, telecom, and technology. Stephen enjoys helping Telemetry's clients meet today's recruitment, sourcing, and marketing challenges. In today's webinar, we'll be discussing 6 innovative practices to take the lead in recruitment marketing. So with that, I'd love to hand it over to Madeline and Stephen.
Thanks so much, Carrie. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm thrilled to be here presenting with Stephen on 6 innovative trends in recruitment marketing. Recruitment marketing is one of the fastest growing areas of HR technology. We see in the research that we do that 70% of companies are increasing their investment in some capabilities over the next year. So it's no doubt a very popular topic. I think, but what happens so often is that we get so overwhelmed with recruitment marketing and companies thinking about what they need to do and how they need to do it, especially when the trends that we talk about tend to be so very high level. We're talking about implementing a CRM, or we're talking about transforming analytics, or rethinking job distribution. It can feel overwhelming when you look broadly at recruitment marketing. So what we're going to do today is really think about how can you think about some of the trends happening in recruitment marketing in a more tactical way, a more strategic way, and also build a business case for maybe making changes within your organization. So some companies need more of quick wins to get started and thinking about how to really link recruitment marketing with overall business results. So that's what we're here to talk about today. Just some context. I'm not going to bore you with any more bio, but just to give you context for some of the research that we're going to share today. It's a combination of the surveys that we do. So you'll see a lot of survey data and quantitative research. And also we do a lot of interviews with companies. We're very strategic in how we interview companies to learn their pain points, what they're focused on, what their priorities are, and how they're investing in technology. So what exactly are we going to cover today? Well, we're going to really focus on 3 things. We're going to look at the current state of recruitment marketing. It's amazing to me, Stephen, I know we've talked a lot about this, how much this area of technology has changed even over the past year. There are a lot of changes within companies, rethinking their processes. There's a lot of changes with the technology out there in the market. And it's important to understand where we're at to really look at the 6 trends that we're going to talk about today. And finally, we're going to leave you with some future trends to think about and some key recommendations that you can take back to your own organization. So let's take a look at what's happening right now in recruitment marketing. So it's interesting when you think about talent acquisition overall and a lot of the changes that we're seeing, it's changed because it's now a focus not only for HR and talent acquisition, but it's a focus for the overall business. This was a study that was done by PwC, and what they found is that 77% of CEOs, not a survey for HR leaders, it's a survey for CEOs. 77% of CEOs said that the availability of talent is the greatest threat to their organization. And because of that, 60% of those CEOs are rethinking their technology options, thinking about what can they do better. And most of what they're rethinking is how can we, just as we do for consumers, engage with talent even before they apply for a job. And Stephen, I know we've talked a lot about that and about how you're seeing not only talent acquisition, with a lot of these companies you work with, but a lot of other areas of the business getting involved with these technology decisions.
Sure, absolutely. It's far more complex than it ever was before. And I'm just thinking, back to my introduction, going all the way back to when I started in the industry. I started on the contingency side, and we had that magic Rolodex, right? Now today, there's so much data out there. The availability of talent is a totally different kind of talent today. So the tools and the technology and the process is that much more important.
Absolutely. And with that, it brings a lot of new challenges that we haven't had to face before. It's that increased business pressure. Now, different areas of the business are being incorporated into a lot of these decisions around technology. All eyes are on talent acquisition. We want to make sure that the strategies that we have and the technology we have are the right ones that are actually driving results. And talent acquisition has to be held accountable. They have to be able to show that what they're doing is really the most effective solution. So that's certainly true for recruitment marketing. And as companies think about what are we doing to actually engage with candidates ahead of time, it's where we're really finding companies that are successful are able to build that business case. The gig economy. This is a big challenge for companies too, to think about as we look at a more flexible workforce. How do we think about attracting talent that might not be just traditional workers, but also a very flexible workforce? When you think about individuals that might want different options with a job, that might work for a company for a short period and then decide to take some time off and come back again. Our workforce today is very fluid. So it's recruitment is not the same as it used to be, for sure. And then new technology. And Stephen, we've had conversations about this as well. There are so many new technology providers in this market, and most of them are really trying to tap into this recruitment marketing area. And it's really exciting for companies to think today we actually have options. We don't have to rely on agencies. We don't have to rely on job boards. We can have really great solutions. But at the same time, a lot of these companies don't necessarily have either the staying power or the technology that can support companies, especially global enterprise companies. And Stephen, I'm sure you come across that quite a bit, that a lot of these providers might not even be around in a year.
I think that's absolutely true from a vendor or provider perspective. I think also from an enterprise perspective, those two challenges that you just mentioned, the gig economy, the fluidity of talent, together with the new technology, really challenges the way talent acquisition leaders are thinking today about the availability of talent, the ability to identify talent, and who the audiences that they're really targeting. And here's an idea that what today is a quote unquote passive candidate, right? That whole thing changes so much that just bringing the tools and technology is not necessarily enough. You also have to bring a total change in paradigm and in process and upskill your people.
Absolutely, and the communication that goes along with that.
Yes.
Do we have the right tools and the right channels to be able to provide that communication? And I think that lends itself to the transparency too. There's an expectation today. There's an expectation from candidates to know more about employers and from employers to know more about candidates. And if we're not providing that information, we're not able to make the best decisions, and ultimately we're not able to ensure that we're getting the best people that are going to want to stay at our organization.
Yeah, absolutely. And the irony is when you look at some of the candidate experience data that's out there from the talent board, transparency is more and more important in our society, and yet candidates are more and more in the dark about what's actually happening to their application process, right? So some real challenges there.
Yeah, and there's not a lot of confidence. There's not a lot of confidence that they've applied and they're moving along in the process, and there's not a lot of confidence that they're going to get the attention that they need. So it's a real challenge for companies. And in the past, we just have not done a great job of both engaging with talent before they apply and then continuing that communication. So with a lot of these new challenges and pressures and a deeper focus from the business, we're seeing a new framework emerge for talent acquisition. And we call this the Trifecta. It's thinking about attract, how do we engage with talent pre-applicant, how do we recruit talent, so what we're used to with typically our ATS system, how do we assess and interview and screen, extend an offer, moving someone along through that process. It's a workflow. And then the final piece of that is the onboarding, making sure that all of the new hire forms are filled out, the tasks are done, and we're socializing this person into the company culture. It's not a new phenomenon thinking about the Trifecta this way, but what is new is that we just have not had a strong enough focus on this attract bucket. We've done this in a very ad hoc way. Most companies would wait for somebody to come and apply for a job and have no process for really looking at how we were engaging with talent ahead of time in a very strategic way. So companies are rethinking that, and they're looking at how can we think about our employer branding? How can we think about candidate engagement? How can we think about all of these things that happen as consumers to us before we actually buy a product, and make that same experience for our candidates? And what we found is that 1 in 3 companies are increasing their investment in that attract phase, in that recruitment marketing. And the point that I want to make here, and Stephen, I'd love your thoughts on this too, is this isn't necessarily finding new budget. For a lot of companies, this is looking at replacing or refocusing the budget, saying, okay, we've been spending a lot of money on third-party recruiters, or we've been spending a lot of money on advertising and agencies and job boards. How can we find a more effective platform and a solution that's actually going to drive results? So for a lot of companies, I think it's not necessarily finding a whole new budget item, a line item in their talent acquisition spend. It's actually just making better decisions.
I would totally agree with that in a couple of different ways. So what we experience, because our company is totally focused on the attract portion of that trifecta, and we see that this really is about recruitment marketing, which for us is a whole set of competencies within the organization that allow you to do inbound marketing, allow you to source and find people, that allow you to do outbound marketing and messaging out to your folks, manage relationships and data, and engage and ultimately convert people, because that's really what marketing is all about at that attract phase. So what we find is that you're right, in those companies that are, I don't want to say early adopters, but are just starting to put these sorts of capabilities into their organization, they are probably replacing agency spend, advertising spend, et cetera. There are also a lot of companies out there that have been playing in this space for a couple of years, have driven some of that cost out of the organization, but they're dealing with disparate tools. And so now they're realizing that to really do this well, they need to have a much more focused approach. So they're still, seeing some replacement of dollars there to further focus and do an even better job at attraction. But
Absolutely.
that comes with more complexities, as you know, in terms of what the skill set is and what the tool set is that talent acquisition requires.
Absolutely. And there are a lot of disparate solutions, so it's hard for organizations, I think, to have even visibility into how many they might be using. And I think for the first time this year, we're also seeing a lot of replacement, second and third generation buyers in a recruitment marketing platform, which is interesting and exciting at the same time.
Absolutely.
So a new framework, a new focus on this attract and recruitment marketing, and with that comes some new responsibilities for talent acquisition and what we call the modern recruiter, focused on not just building relationships and moving someone along through the workflow. Now we have to think about meeting the business needs, understanding data, and being able to translate and articulate that data to different areas within the business, being innovative in testing out new strategies and looking at providers that are really going to be effective for them. And within the talent acquisition function, we're seeing some new roles emerge focused on specialists that could be focused on employer branding, digital and social media specialists, data scientists. There's a lot of financial firms I know that when they recruit financial analysts, oftentimes if they have good talent, they will ask if they want to join the talent acquisition team. And for most of those candidates, they don't care. They want to work at the big financial firms, and they aren't really picky about what department they're part of. They just want to be able to really be able to look at data and provide insights on it. So a lot of data scientists emerging in the role too. And I think the other one is candidate experience experts, which I think is interesting when you look at recruitment marketing, because oftentimes they have most of the influence on these technology decisions. Stephen, would you agree with that? Are you seeing a lot of candidate experience roles?
Yes, we are. Years ago, you'd come to a table and talk about technology and be, 9 recruiters and maybe a manager, and now it's probably 2 recruiters, and the rest are coming from this list of specialists that you have on the slide there, which is very interesting. The challenge then is a couple of things. Is number one, how do you pull this new team together, right? We knew what to do, and it was just recruiters and their managers. How do you pull this new team together? How do you drive results from this new team? What kinds of tools and technology and process do you put together for this new team? And I know this is something that we're exploring as a company as we work with our clients as they evolve. Right, they're going through a what we call a maturity model, and part of that maturity model is how their organization is set up to deliver, and how these team members work together with the technology to drive results. And I know we don't have anything on the calendar yet, but I know that we're exploring a webinar sometime early this fall, specifically to talk about how to set up a recruitment marketing team. So stay tuned for that plug, right?
Interesting. I definitely want to hear that myself, so I'll be joining that. Great. So a lot of change with responsibilities, with a new framework, with new challenges, but at the same time, recruiters are still facing many of the same challenges. And when we asked recruiters in our most recent study where they spend most of their time, you can see here it's communicating with candidates. Very difficult for a lot of recruiters to be able to do their follow-ups, and a lot of it's scheduling. And that's what we find when we do most of our interviews. It's scheduling can take up days, and that's what recruiters are spending most of their time doing. And when you're focused on just scheduling, and when you're focused on just trying to mine through your ATS for hours and hours, you really don't have a lot of time to do anything strategic. You don't have a lot of time to think about employer branding. You don't have a lot of time to really look at your data and your analytics and provide some insights there. You don't have time to communicate to business leaders about what's important. So the challenge I think a lot of companies face is that all of this change is happening and there's excitement, but yet we're still spending our time doing a lot of these administrative burdens. And that's why it's exciting to see a lot of these new technology solutions, because they can help with a lot of those tasks that recruiters are facing with the scheduling, with the communication. And that's one reason that recruitment marketing has been such a priority, and talent acquisition leaders are really embracing these solutions. We found that over 70% of companies, enterprise companies, are investing in CRM capabilities in some way. And you can see here, I think this is a great example. Stephen, I'll let you talk about it, but it's showing CDW. And the interesting thing to me is you look at how simple this is. You're having someone and collecting their information into a talent community, and it's so simple. You're having them either do it whatever's easier for the candidate. They can upload the LinkedIn profile, they can upload a resume, they can use their Google profile, lots of different ways to make it so easy for the candidate. Now, if you compare this to applying for a job on an ATS, I don't know if anyone's done it recently, but it's excruciating. There are often 40 different fields that you have to fill out. Sometimes you have to go through that process 3 or 4 times. And it's not candidate friendly. It's a very frustrating process, especially when someone might not be sure if they want to come work for your organization. So, Stephen, I know you have a lot of experience with working with companies on this and how simple you've made it.
Yeah, I think, also some of those early adopter CRMs would sort of add another layer on top of the application process so that they were capturing people into their talent network, which was a separate database from their ATS, right? Yeah. So, what we're trying to do with our clients is really help them use technology to make all of that simple, right? So if somebody applies to your job, they end up in your ATS, you already mentioned how difficult it is to find people in their ATS. Well, if your CRM is seamlessly integrated to your ATS, then you're using your CRM to actually look at past applicants and mine your silver medalists. And for people who don't want to apply for a job, give them, as you have in the slide here, a really simple upload your LinkedIn profile, join our talent network kind of a thing. And the challenge here is that it adds a lot of data into your system, but today's tools can manage that data, right? And so, what you said earlier about where recruiters are spending their time, I think we're finding out that as CRM has grown over the past 10 years, and we're probably talking about 10 or 11 years since CRM came onto the marketplace for enterprise, we're really seeing a change in, a focus to, use CRM to build a very process-heavy way to, manage a few candidates, to a large data, right, big data tool to help automate some of the things that can be automated so that recruiters have more time to spend with relationship building and matchmaking, right? So, the technology helps both on the candidate experience, but then also on the recruiter experience. And I think we might have another just quick example of this on the next slide, Laura. Yeah, there it is. And so just again, another example of, just really quickly capturing that LinkedIn profile, asking 2 quick questions so that the system now can take over in terms of, pulling the right people up when sourcers enter your CRM and managing communications in an automated way. Quick 3 steps, and they're completed, and they're having the same kind of experience here as they might have in any consumer experience. So you want to be able to optimize not only your application into the ATS, but also your registration process.
Yep, it's simple, builds confidence, and it's not at all scary. And if you look at, beyond that, what else, recruitment marketing is, and I think it's important to define it as we're talking about some of these trends here. When we define it as part of this trifecta, these are the capabilities that we look at: career sites, events management, campaigns, content management, SEO, job distribution, CRM, employee referrals, talent networks, and analytics. And I think the challenge that a lot of companies find is that, Stephen, to your point, there's a lot of disparate solutions that call themselves recruitment marketing platforms that might just do 1 or 2 of these. And then the challenge you're going to face as you look to mature in your recruitment marketing is you're going to need to make more and more investments. So if you can find one provider to do most of the capabilities that you need, you're going to be in a better place to have the data that you need to make decisions and a consistent experience for your candidates.
Yeah, I agree. And it's really important to understand who your audience is, right? Who are you ultimately trying to reach out to from a strategic perspective, because that's going to let you know which of these areas are potentially a bit more important than another area. Then you take a look at the importance of having a platform approach, so you do have the best process, you do have the data centralized, and most importantly, you've got the analytics to help drive better results.
Yeah. So I think one question we get asked a lot, I know from a lot of companies that we do work with, is should we just use our ATS? And some of the ATSs are maturing and they're building out CRM capabilities or some type of recruitment marketing module. But for most companies, beyond a consistent experience, they're not getting all of the benefits and the deep functionality that they get from a standalone recruitment marketing platform. So the benefits with a consistent experience don't often replace what you would get from really being able to engage talent, provide that content, provide those campaigns, provide a really simple process, and the analytics to back it up.
Yeah, I think both from a candidate experience as well as from a data experience, if you do have the right marketing platform that has deep API level integration into your ATS, then it's going to help you with that consistency of experience as well. So it's really important to be able to determine, particularly in the larger enterprise markets, the level of capability for integration for your platform. What data can they see in the ATS? Are you able to report in your CRM, in your marketing platform? Are you able to report full cycle analytics from a source perspective, from an activity perspective? Can you see the data that comes out of the ATS to be able to report on, how many people from a specific source or a specific campaign actually got an interview, as an example, right? And just that question there demands data from at least 2, if not 3 systems, right? So how good is your platform at integrating that data and being able to present it out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So given all of this change, given all the challenges that recruiters are still faced with, and what exactly a recruitment marketing platform can do, where do we go from here? What's driving some of these trends that we're going to talk about today? And it really comes down to better communication, better personalization, and stronger analytics. And that's exactly what we're going to focus on here with these 6 innovative trends. And the first one is around communication. And we're going to talk about how texting directly with candidates optimizes your response rates. And I think it's something that we probably all know. We all text and we live on our phones. But it's surprising to me how few talent acquisition departments actually communicate with candidates through text. Too often, I think we revert back to either communicating through our ATS or through email. And you can see here what we found is that, over 2 million emails are sent in 1 second. And when we asked employees and candidates, they're not even opening their emails from HR or talent acquisition. So it's a difficult situation for a lot of companies when this is what we've relied on. And how do we get into that habit of making sure that we're texting with candidates? It's interesting. I read recently that there are 6 billion texts that are sent in a day. And for individuals that are between the ages of 18 and 24, they're sending 67 texts on average a day. So this is where our candidates live. It's not just true for younger generations, it's true for everyone. This is where they live. And if we want to be part of the conversation and engage with talent, we need to be able to text with them as well.
And anecdotally, we're starting to find, as we have these conversations with our clients and our potential clients, that even if they don't have a centralized text plan, they're starting to see their recruiters text ad hoc, right, using their own phones and trying to reach out to candidates. So that there's definitely a push and a need there. And the challenge now then is, how do you start to put this into your overall platform so that you're being able to text not in an ad hoc way, but being able to text, number one, simply, right? So you can send an SMS directly from your CRM or directly from your ATS. Obviously, that's a lot more efficient for recruiters. You're going to drive much better compliance in terms of what are people, texting out, and who are they texting to, and why are they actually texting, and then you're going to have analytics to understand how to ad hoc text versus campaign text versus programmatic text deliver results in terms of engagement and conversion.
Yeah, I think it's such a good point, Stephen. I think it's something that can't be done in an ad hoc way, but it's simple for recruiters, and to be able to do it through a platform where you're so, in such a simple way, sending out a text message, and then you have the analytics to show you, has it been effective? Who's responding? How quickly do they respond? And are you able to convert talent better if you're using text versus some of these other channels for communication? So it's amazing. And I think the benefits, to your point, are not just to the candidate, to the recruiter too. This is where recruiters live too. It's easy to be working virtually, or be picking your kids up from school and be able to communicate with candidates while you're waiting in line.
Yeah, so we're really excited at Telemetry, because we have just in our spring released texting directly from our CRM, and we're just now getting our first clients up on it. Some of these clients have been using text through other vendors and providers that aren't as integrally integrated into the CRM, and so I think it's going to be a real boost for them to be able to text straight from the CRM. It's going to be great from a data perspective for them to be able to identify how well these texts are performing, number one, but then number two, to be able to search and segment their candidate database based upon the engagement on the text level as well. So we're pretty excited about being part of this trend.
That's great. And what I love about it too is that there's just not a lot of change management. I mean, I think when you think about any area of technology and you think about new capabilities that are added to different solutions, there's some change management required. And there's a time where you're making sure that customers are getting used to these changes. For something like text, it's very little change management. It's something that I think everyone embraces, every user.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's as simple as sending an email from our system. So very simple for them to use.
Great. So the next trend that we're going to talk about certainly ties into the communication piece, but it takes it one step further. It's thinking about personalization and how can personalized content empower the candidate journey and build ongoing relationships. And this is a big change, Stephen, as we both have been in the space for a while, that's happened in talent acquisition, where we have not, as organizations, done a great job of personalizing our messaging or our content to candidates throughout the journey. So to be able to think about how can we provide the right kind of content in a way that feels like we're actually, care about our candidates and want to build these relationships, even if they might not come and work for our organization. And so it's a big shift. But if you think about how we operate as consumers, this has already happened. I don't know if anybody on the call uses Stitch Fix or knows anyone that does, but I started using it recently, and it's really a great way to shop if you hate shopping like me, and to be able to have a really simple personal experience. So it's a quick process. You sign up and you get assigned what they call a stylist, and they send you a personal message to your name and say, we're so excited to work for you. It feels really engaging. And we're going to, start asking you questions. The point that I want to make here is they want to make sure this is a dialogue. So they're asking for feedback. Is there anything else we need to know about you so we can do a really good job of giving you the styles that you're interested in? And from all this information, they send you some clothes that you can decide if you want or end up sending back. And it's not really the clothes that differentiates Stitch Fix. What differentiates them is that they've created this experience that feels so friendly, where people are referring to their stylist, even if it ends up just being a bot. They really feel like this is a company that understands them and is concerned with making sure they have a positive experience. It's something that we have come to expect as consumers, and we're just not seeing the same thing happen as often as candidates.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this trend, and I think back to about years ago, probably 15, 16 years ago, when I was implementing a specific ATS and just creating questions. And I remember always wanting to create these questions so that it becomes a dialogue as opposed to some sort of checkbox, and just trying to at least play at a relationship with candidates even before the technology wasn't there. So we're excited as a company to be jumping in on a more personalized approach to candidate engagement on the career site specifically. And we went into this very cautiously because we're very concerned about data privacy. And particularly with GDPR out now, we wanted to make sure that when we built the solution, it was personal, but it was also secure, and it also made sense. And so, our approach to the whole personalization and consumer approach is really to drive recognition, recommendation, and what I call relevance. Right. So it's pretty obvious here from my career site here. This is a fake company I use for career sites, but when I hit the career site, it's welcoming me to the career site. It gives me that kind of warm, fuzzy feeling that they recognize me. I've been here before. They know who I am, and they want to put a nice message out there for me. But then on the right-hand side, based upon the fact that I've been here before, the fact that they know a little bit about me, they're able to give me some job recommendations that may make sense to me. So it might, speed up my search, and it might actually drive conversions on the career site much more quickly. And then finally, we're really drilling into what we call relevance. So, let's say for sake of argument, if you have somebody that comes to your site because they saw a job on militaryjobs.com, why not give them a fully military experience when they come through that site, or they've come from a diversity site, then why not show them content that's relevant to where they came from? So it's not just about identifying me by name, but also identifying me by where I've come from, what I might be interested in, what I've engaged in before, so that not only from a job perspective, but also from an overall career content perspective, we're continually driving content that is relevant to who the job seeker is and what their experience needs to be. So these are experiences we expect to have when we're out shopping, right? And they should be some experiences that we have when we're looking for jobs as well.
Yeah, and I think it's a great point. There's no limit to the personalization. If it's not just by job function, it's not just by generational group. It could be, I think, to your example, military hiring, or it's thinking about, is this somebody that is going to be working remotely? Who's our audience, and how can we create a personal experience for that individual?
And this is also the power of data. I mean, we all know this intuitively that none of this happens without data. And from our perspective, it was really important for us to tie our CRM functionality, which is where the majority of your candidate-related data sits, with our front-end engagement capability, so that the more we know about somebody, and with that data sitting in the CRM, we can pull back in there and pull out relevant data markers to be able to provide them with that deeper and deeper and deeper level personalization and relevancy on the front end.
Absolutely. So better communication, better personalization, and I know you have some announcements here too with what you're doing with your product.
Yeah, we simply call it Candidate Path, really, which is the ability to deliver what we showed you earlier there, personalized content based upon how much our clients know about their candidates. When they visit the site, when they finally give us their LinkedIn profile or Google LinkedIn, or they put out give us any other information. The more information we have, the better we're able to create a candidate path that makes sense for each individual candidate.
Great. So the next trend that we're going to talk about is how sharing and reviewing feedback earlier in the process on prospective talent provides an expedited experience and better quality throughout the entire process. So what we found in just the communication piece is that companies aren't getting that feedback, and they're not sharing that feedback with candidates. They're not providing information on the company. They don't have a single point of contact. They don't have transparency, and they're not engaging with candidates often before they even apply. So that feedback piece, and I think it goes back to our communication conversation about a dialogue, needs to happen much earlier. We can't wait until someone's in the interview to ask for feedback. And Stephen, I don't know if you have any thoughts on kind of the best way that can happen for a lot of companies when they're using a platform.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So, we've seen some of our clients start to work with a talent board, right? So putting in candidate surveys throughout the process. That's one really great way to do it. Another really great way to do it is to use your CRM with outgoing email and text capability to invite people back to share a quick survey. And we're starting to see chatbots enter this equation as well, where you're able to have a dialogue, although albeit with a chatbot. If you do it right, candidates know that they're providing information that's going to add value.
Absolutely. And I think the point I'd make there too is it's not a one size fits all. It's not just one strategy that everyone needs to implement. There's lots of different options, and it might be doing multiple. You might be doing your surveys, whether you do them through the talent board or another company, or you might also be using chatbots at the same time. It's figuring out what works, but making sure that dialogue is happening.
Yeah, I think the best thing we can say is do something.
Yeah, do something.
Yes.
Just start.
That's right.
The next trend we're going to talk about is insights. So how can we gain insights and visibility into career site behavior to be able to empower our recruiting teams, to be able to segment talent and candidates, and to be more engaging throughout the process. So I think, it sounds pretty straightforward that we need these insights, but so often we don't use them. And I think for a lot of talent acquisition teams, we haven't been trained to be able to look at career site behavior. How are candidates engaging with their career sites? What kind of content are they interested in? How long are they staying? What's working to engage them? We haven't done that in the past, and I think it's really important, and it's certainly the way that marketing operates in the consumer world. They're looking at this stuff all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's the ability of the data, and I think you have a slide now that will show us, all the data points.
Exactly, all the different data points, and this is an example of just Fitbit. And I think, we're used to this in our own, not only as consumers, but in our personal lives too. A lot of people have Fitbits or other ways to track their steps or their activity, and we want to see the data. We want to know what these different data points are. We want to be able to look at them and see how we're doing and how we're performing and what's happening. And we're eager to have this information. We're comfortable with it, and it motivates us to make improvements. And I think the same is true when we think about a career site. We need to be able to look at this data regularly, get these insights, and be able to make improvements, make changes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, frankly, for myself, I just want to make sure that my dog is more tired than I am when I come back from a walk. But I do feel good when I see those steps. But yet, if data is not visible, then you can't, quote unquote, feel good about it. You can't feel bad about it. You can't improve, right? And you can't take action from it, right? And so, some of the interesting data points that we see clients who are starting to really take recruitment marketing to the next level are things like open rates on emails, right? Now we'll start tracking things like open rates on texts, right? Or application rates, completion rates. This is even something that's been very difficult in the past to see, because nobody was able to really measure it from beginning to end. We would always lose people when they were, quote unquote, logging into the ATS, right? But now we can see completion rates from the time they look at the job till the time they actually submit that application, delivery of campaigns and what's happening in terms of driving results there.
Yeah, and they're all touch points and opportunities to do exactly what we talked about earlier with communication and personalization. If you have that insight and you can see when somebody dropped off from filling out their form, you notice that people are, individuals are looking at some jobs in some areas of your career site more than others, you can personalize those communications to make sure that they know that you're paying attention to them, and you want to make sure that you can help them throughout the process if they're having trouble finishing their application, or having trouble understanding what the company's like or what this job might entail.
Yeah, and I think in the next slide I may have an example of what this might look like inside a system that's really doing a good job tracking not only applicants, where you actually have a lot of data, right, but even just website visitors. So this is what I like to call actionable visitor data. Joseph Smith came in. He landed on the site. He did some job searches. He landed on some pages. He might have read some content. He obviously wanted us to personalize the website, because he used his LinkedIn profile to let us do so. And because of that, we're able to reach out to him if we want to. So we can actually take some actionable data to reach out to this person and thank them for visiting, and ask if there's anything else we can do to help them with their job search, et cetera. So, pushing, the ability to capture and action data across the entire life cycle of a candidate, early visitor, all the way through to a completed application.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and it's actionable. It's data that you can take action on.
Yep, and real time. So again, this is sort of an announcement. This is another piece that because of the way we built the personalization and the way I mentioned earlier, we're now able to take the data that we're capturing from that personalization experience, which is giving the candidate a better experience, and then driving that insight into the organization to create a much more optimized approach to outbound marketing, to CRM, and capture analytics that can help us drive results.
Great. So the next trend, how Google machine learning can maximize career site traffic and engagement to help with candidate conversion. And I think that what's exciting to me about this, and I'll let you talk about it, Stephen, because I know it's something you guys have been working on, but it's something that we can do immediately. This is immediate results. And it's not as scary as I think companies might think that it is.
Yeah, I think it's really taking the whole candidate experience on the front end to the next level, right? When we think of the way that we use Google to search, and everything that we're attuned to with Google, and in my spare time, I'm frankly a theologian, which sounds a little odd, but it's weird that when I go to Google, I can find second century authors on specific, really esoteric conversations, right? This is what I expect out of Google. So when I land on somebody's career site and I start to search for a job and I don't even get half of that, it just doesn't work, right? So the Google Job Cloud Discovery is really giving us the capability to leverage Google's machine learning and AI to drive the candidate experience, so that if they're all thumbs like I am when they type in a job title, they're still going to find relevant jobs. If they look for a janitor in an organization that calls them environmental engineers, they're still going to find those jobs, right? And it's going to give them the same capability that they have when they're shopping for something, to be able to find the relevant job. So this again just takes the whole candidate experience and pushes it far ahead.
Great. Yeah, and it's an expectation that again, something that we expect in the consumer world, in our personal lives. Why can't we put the same emphasis into our candidate experience?
Absolutely. So again, this is just very simply how it works. So if you are able to have this on your site, you have job seekers come. They're going to do a job search, whether or not they type the right thing or they type a word that's close by. That data is going to be provided to them through the job discovery, leveraging the data model of Google. And they're indexing the job database that we have in our system on your career site, and that's really, quite frankly and simply, how it's able to deliver the same kinds of results as you would expect. Probably more than we needed to know. And this is just again announcing that we're just happy to be coming to the market with this, and to be a partner with Google on this.
Exciting. And the final trend is also about candidate conversion, but it's thinking about how we can improve candidate conversion on Indeed, and how that will improve the overall applicant volume, which is interesting. And I think the topic of candidate conversion is an interesting topic, but I think specifically how we think about using some of these tools like Indeed, and what our goals are. And I think that's where a lot of companies struggle. It's what should we be looking at? And this is true for all different metrics. We ask companies how they're measuring the success of recruitment marketing. You can see conversion is right up there as a top metric, which is very exciting, because it's not something we were talking about 5-10 years ago. But it's thinking about what do we hope to get by measuring this? What do we hope to get? And for a lot of the improvements in candidate conversion, and it's thinking about increasing applicant volume.
Yeah, absolutely. We're very excited, particularly to be working with Indeed on helping convert candidates who, let's face it, Indeed is probably the number one source of candidate traffic for almost any client that we see. And even with the easy apply process that they had in the past, there was still a challenge there once they hit the ATS and had to create the login and password and all that kind of stuff, right? So what we've been able to do is deliver for our clients who also use Indeed a seamless approach, where when they click the apply, They're just using our web-based technology then to push the data straight into their ATS without having to create any kind of login or password. And so what we're going to see is some really much better conversions from that application process. Now, since we just delivered this, we don't have any clients that we can kind of push that data. But I wanted to show and share with you, Madeline, our ability as a recruitment marketing platform to be able to show the data on conversion. So what we're looking at in this slide, each of these are different application processes. So you can see this client has an English application, a non-English application, and 2 levels of executive application. So presumably each of these application processes is slightly different. Maybe they ask different questions. Maybe they have more or less steps, right? Once we put the Indeed Apply piece in there, that would be another application process where we can take a look at what the actual completion rates are. So how many people converted and what was the conversion ratio. And this is going to allow our clients to be able to put these tools in and know which ones are actually driving the types of results they're looking to drive.
Great. Yeah, and Indeed, I would say most companies, regardless of size, are using Indeed. So to be able to have, that relationship with them, I think is very valuable.
Absolutely.
And actionable. So we talked about a lot of things here. I think the trends that we addressed today are probably not the typical trends that you hear in recruitment marketing. Hopefully you found them to be informative and I think empowering. I think they're things that we can work on starting in the immediate future, not something that you have to wait a year to be able to change your own internal processes before you implement. So that's the exciting news. And I think kind of the overall recommendations we'd leave you with is thinking about greater simplicity, improved communication capabilities. We talked a lot about how important communication is, and you have a lot of different options, especially with a recruitment marketing platform, to be able to reach out to candidates, provide a more engaging experience, use things like survey tools and chatbots to be able to really make sure that candidates know where they're at in the process and they feel like they're not getting ignored. And then using data to drive decisions, actionable data. The thing with talent acquisition is for a lot of companies, you have a lot of different solutions in place. You might have a lot of different disparate solutions, and they all offer some type of data or analytics. To really be able to have data that you can take action on and to do that within the platform is hugely valuable. It's valuable not only for your recruiting teams, but for the business leaders that are now so focused on talent acquisition and for your candidates to make sure that they're getting the best, most personal experience they could possibly get. And then this focus on experience, I think, we talk about it so often, but it's really continuing to reevaluate the experience, focus on the experience, go through the experience yourself as a candidate, not just when you're applying for a job, but what happens as you're being engaged with a company that you're interested in, a company that you want to learn more about. What is that experience like? And I think going back, Stephen, to that, personal career site that you showed earlier, it feels personal. It feels like this is a company that truly does care and is going to not drop the ball on that communication and builds trust. I heard recently that a lot of candidates, what influences their decision ultimately is a relationship with the recruiting team. It's not necessarily the products being sold at the company. It's not necessarily if the office has free catered lunches every day. It's what has that experience been like with the recruiting team? And if it's a positive one, they want to work there. So I think it's important that we continue to think about what that experience looks like.
I think that's a great point. We so often, in the world of technology, think about the candidate experience stopping at the application completion, piece. But the communication post-application is so important. And again, your ability to communicate out, whether that's through your ATS or through your CRM, to keep engaged is really important post-application as well as pre.
Great. So I think we have time for a few questions here. Turn it back over to Carrie.
Sure, that sounds great. Thanks for a lot of great insight, both Madeline and Stephen. If anybody does have any questions, please feel free to enter them into the question box on your panel. We do have a couple that have come in here. Madeline, the first one being, do you need a dedicated person to focus on recruitment marketing at your company?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think so often this is where the hang up is for a lot of companies, where they're not sure if they have, you know, if you look at all these new responsibilities in talent acquisition, they're not sure if they have the right skill set within their talent acquisition team to handle recruitment marketing. And the point I'd make here is you don't necessarily need a recruitment marketing expert on your talent acquisition team, but you need a champion. You need somebody, whether it's a recruiter, whether it's someone who might be an employer branding specialist, somebody that's willing to be the champion for this, and you know, invest in the right solutions and really kind of change the mindset that this needs to happen before somebody applies for a job. So I don't think you need to necessarily go out and recruit for a marketing professional for every organization. And I don't think you necessarily need to spend a lot of time developing those skills internally. And the other point I'd make too is if you're investing in the right technology partner, they're going to work with your organization. They're going to help you through the process, and they're going to work with whoever your champion is to make sure that they feel confident in truly understanding what the goals are and how to execute on that. Stephen, I don't know if you'd have anything that you'd add there.
Yeah, I was just going to say that's a great point, and I think part of that partner needs to be, part of what that partner needs to do is, be wise enough to say to you, let's do this, not all of that. In other words, we focus very much on what we call a maturity model, which is, as clients come in, they might be a level 2 maturity in inbound marketing and a level 3 in CRM, so to speak, but don't try to pull them from a level, 1 all the way to a level 4, right? So in marketing, if you want to open up a little Etsy store, don't think you're going to do Amazon type stuff, but you take, step by step by step, and your recruitment marketing partner needs to understand what steps make sense for the level of maturity that you're at, and then where you want to be 6 months from now, 12 months from now, 18 months from now.
Yep, absolutely.
That's a great lead in also, both your responses to our next question, which is what is important when thinking about evaluating providers?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's hard to stay focused when you're evaluating providers in this market, Stephen, as you know, because there are so many new providers that enter the market, and you can get so caught up in what might seem exciting or having a great rapport with somebody that might work at a provider that you lose sight of what your objective is as an organization. So I think it's really important, especially in recruitment marketing, to think about 3 things. Think about a provider that has true expertise in this area. This is a great market to be in. It's a great time to be in talent acquisition technology. And there's a lot of individuals and companies that recognize that. And they want to capitalize off of all of this investment that's happening. But they don't necessarily have the expertise. So you really need a provider that truly understands what your recruitment challenges are. They've made a commitment to be in this space, and they're willing to work with you and evolve as the market may change. It's a true expertise in talent acquisition and recruitment marketing. You need a provider that is committed to making a positive experience for your candidates, for your recruiting teams, for your hiring managers, making sure that experience is a focus, and test it out, go through the process for all of those different users. And then adoption, and this happens often with recruitment marketing, and it happened a lot with the first generation of recruitment marketing providers, is that sometimes the solutions can be complex, that your recruiting teams don't ever get the right training to feel comfortable using them. So you need to make sure that you have the right change management process in place, that you have the resources that are going to go through the process of training your recruiters to use it, because you absolutely will get huge value from these solutions. You just need to make sure that you're actually using them.
Yeah, I would do all of that, and then add, that it's important that your provider understand, and I speak mostly to managers and executives at this level, that they understand what results you need to drive and are going to be absolutely committed to helping you not only drive those results, but to be able to tell that story internally so that you're able to manage not only your team, but to manage your team's reputation internally.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's such an important piece, is being able to communicate that to all the different stakeholders internally. And you'll probably have to do that often, not just after you make your decision. So it's good to get comfortable doing that and having those conversations.
Great. And one final question that's come in: what trend do you think will be the most important in the future?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think they're all important and they're all certainly relevant, but that, to me, it's the communication piece that is going to be most important, and it's going to be what makes companies successful. And the personalization ties into that. It's, are we communicating via text? That's where our candidates are, but also using some of these other methods to make sure that we're collecting information, we're collecting reviews, collecting feedback, making sure that our outreach feels personal, that it doesn't feel like we're just sending out a template to every single person that might have come across our career site. So to me, it's that communication. That is what is going to make companies successful. If they're dedicated to the communication, if they have the right tools to enable it, and it's a conversation they're willing to continue to revisit.
I love that answer.
All right, well, I think that wraps up our questions, and I know we're at the top of the hour. So Madeline and Stephen, thank you guys so much for a great presentation today. And I hope everybody has a great rest of your day.
Thanks, it's been fun.
Yeah, thank you so much.